Welcome to this 25-minute workshop on cultivating the confidence to lead a room, including those difficult one-to-one conversations with your boss. So imagine you are in a group meeting situation. Maybe it's your team meeting, and either you're online or it's in an in-person meeting, and there's a question that you have for the group. Maybe it's a clarification question because after the meeting, you're going to have to go away and do some work. And if you don't understand exactly what you have to do or why you have to do it or how you have to do it, you might not get it done. Or maybe there's a solution that you want to propose that will make your life or your team's life easier, and you want to put forward that for their consideration. How likely are you to speak up and share your genius with confidence? Or are you perhaps more likely to decide not to say anything and muddle on and struggle on and figure it out afterwards? What about those one-to-one conversations with your manager? Perhaps she's been stuck in back-to-back meetings all day, and now she's finally got some time where you could have a conversation with her. You don't want to bother her because you know she's so busy. Or maybe he's been traveling all week, and you know that he's aching to get back to his pregnant wife. You know what's going on in your manager's life at work and sometimes at home. And so more than any other colleague, you're less likely to find it easy to bother them because maybe you feel that you should already know what you're supposed to do, or they've already explained it to you, even though you didn't understand, or whatever narrative is going on in your head, you don't want to bother them. If that resonates with you, then this workshop is for you. My name is Madeline, and I'm an executive leadership coach. I work with 100% of the leadership pipeline, from personal assistants to CEOs, to help them unlock their potential and strategically use their unique strengths collectively so that together they can achieve their big goals. Now, let's take a look at what we're going to cover in today's workshop. And I'll be sharing between the screen and my slide deck, so bear with me while I make that transition. All righty. So the first thing we're going to look at is the brain science behind confidence. So everyone was born confident. It's a birthright. And then pretty much immediately, really, that collateral, that investment, if you like, starts fading and starts draining, and that confidence tends to slip away. And if we can understand that process, we can stop that confidence slipping away, and we can replenish it so that we can cultivate confidence and replace confidence. So we're going to have a look at the brain science behind it. I'm also going to give you a 4-step framework that you'll be able to implement straight away after this workshop to start cultivating your confidence on a daily basis when it comes to speaking up. I'm going to be asking you to do some self-reflection. So do have a pen and paper handy, or maybe an open document so you can capture your thoughts, because you might need them later. And finally, at the end, I'll share some extra resources for those of you who want to take this further. Now, just a quick share of my personal story. Why am I talking about confidence and speaking up and so on? Well, I started off as a medical doctor and went straight into industry in the corporate environment and the life sciences. And during the first half of my career, basically my childhood and the first part of my professional career, I suffered from a phobic condition called erythrophobia, which is extreme fear and anxiety of blushing. And I blushed terribly. And I was so nervous that I might potentially blush that I avoided situations. So I avoided one-to-one conversations with colleagues or bosses. I avoided speaking up in meetings. I never said anything. And I stayed stuck. It was only once I overcame that I realized how much I had been stuck and how wonderful life is when you can start contributing. And so that's why I always include confidence work in any of my coaching or my training. So that's a little bit about why I'm doing this. Now, let's move forward. And remember, we're going to start with brain science so that we understand the process. When we understand the process, we stop identifying with it so much and we can learn to control it. And that 4-step framework I'm going to give you is going to help you control your confidence and help you cultivate your confidence. So here we go. Right, so looking at the brain science, you can see what I've done here is I've divided the brain into 3 parts, a little bit like a 3-story apartment building, if you like. At the lower ground level, that's the foundational level. That is the most ancient part of our evolutionary brain. It started evolving over 600 million years ago. As we move up a floor, then that's the middle part of our evolutionary brain, which started evolving around 200 million years ago. And together, those 2 parts of the brain can be seen as our subconscious. And they're the reason for being confident or unconfident, having confidence or lacking confidence, that subconscious part of our brain. They're the culprit, if you like. And when we understand that, we can start controlling it. And so that's what that little dotted line is about. Everything below that line is our subconscious mind. As we continue to evolve from around 50 million years ago, that's our most advanced part of our mind, and that's our conscious mind. So now I'm going to introduce you to the 3 little animals that are living in your head, that are living in everybody's head. All humans function this way. So you've got your lizard, your mouse, and your monkey. So the most ancient part of our brain is called the reptilian brain. It's the brainstem. And its only job, our little lizard, its only thing it has to do is to avoid pain. That's what it did over 600 million years ago. It can't think, it can't feel, but it knows when something is dangerous because it's hardwired for danger. And when something's dangerous, then it kicks in with a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. Now, what does that look like for us in the office environment or at work? So if I feel that there's potential for pain, my lizard kicks in. Maybe I feel I'm going to be judged, or I'm going to say something stupid, or I should really already know what's going on, and maybe I'm going to look unprofessional or something. So whatever I might experience as potential pain, my lizard is going to just try and avoid it to protect me. So he's just trying to protect us. So we have to thank him for it, but sometimes it holds us back. So fight means I'm going to blame others. Oh, it's so badly organized. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Why can't they organize it better? Or they haven't explained to me how to do things properly. Anyway, my fight response is blaming others. My flight response is running away from the thing. Oh, I'm going to have to speak up. That's going to be very uncomfortable. I'm going to look like a fool. I'll call in sick. Or I will, I'll say I'm busy. I say that I've got internet problems and I can't make the presentation. Something like that. We avoid the situation. We fly away from it. Freeze in the animal kingdom is playing dead so that the predator just ignores us. That's what we do at work as well. We might freeze in terms of try and camouflage our fear. And we do that in all sorts of ways. We might overcompensate. We might work really, really hard or become very, very perfectionist. We might quite literally freeze. So if we want to say something, we just go blank and we can't say what we want to say. So freeze is camouflaging it or simply shutting down altogether. It can also turn up in what we now call silent quitting, as in I'm here, but I'm not really here. I'm not actually giving my best because I become a bit dissociated. I become an observer. I'm not involved. I'm not invested. It's like I'm acting dead. I'm not bringing my true self to work. So it's not a very motivating or particularly helpful thing to go through, but unfortunately we all do it at some point. And then the fawn response is the opposite to the flight. So flight, you're attacking other. With fawn, you're kind of attacking yourself and you're feeling guilty and culpable and as if you should have done better. You should have worked harder. You should have understood. You should have asked the question, and you get that sort of negative spiral, negative self-talk. So you can see that our little reptile is actually responsible for our lack of confidence. So when we move up, we continue to evolve, coming up to around 200 million years ago, there's our little mouse, and that's our mammalian brain. Now, our mammalian brain can decide basically whether something good is good or bad. And its only job is to seek out satisfaction. So the lizard in us is an avoidance mechanism. It avoids pain. The mouse in us seeks satisfaction. So you can see that when you're confident, when everything is going well, that mouse is giving you a lot of resources because it's exploring, it's looking for new things, it's looking for satisfaction, and it's a really good thing. But what the mouse also does is, although it can't think, it can feel, and it's the seat of our emotional memories. So if back in your childhood or back in time, you experienced something that was experienced as painful, maybe somebody laughed at you at school when you were reading, or the teacher made you embarrassed in front of your class, that's a very common one, might have been at work, for whatever reason, something was experienced as painful by your little lizard, the mouse will remember that in an emotional fragment. And any time in the present moment where it gets triggered because somebody's looking at you in a certain way, or there's a body language, or you're going to have to speak up, that mouse sends signals to your lizard that kicks in the flight response, because your mouse has judged that that's a bad thing. And so we need to avoid it. And together, because that's our subconscious mind, they're responsible for either positive confidence and seeking out, or negative avoidance and being unconfident. Okay. And then the wonderful thing is that we continued to evolve until around 50 million years ago. And that's our monkey brain, our primate brain, or our neocortex. And this is the part of us that is capable of logical thought, capable of creativity, of innovation, of finding solutions. And the most important job of our monkey brain is connection and belonging. Connection to people, connection to goals, connection to values, connection to ourselves, and belonging to ourselves. And so you can see that if you can control the way you think, because our monkey brain is the only part of our brain that actually thinks. Our mouse can feel, our reptile can avoid, but neither the mouse or the reptile can think. The only thing that can think is our monkey brain, and we can decide what we think. We can choose to think helpful thoughts, or we can choose to think unhelpful thoughts. And the important thing to remember here is that it doesn't matter whether you believe them or not. It doesn't matter whether you believe your thoughts or not. That's the placebo effect. They found out that when they give patients a pill, a sugar pill, and they tell the patient, this is a sugar pill, it's not the real pill, it's a placebo. Even when they tell the patient, so the patient knows it's not a real pill, the patient takes it, they still get the positive placebo effects. So you don't have to believe your thoughts, but you do have to repeat them and say them. And there's the clue to cultivating the confidence. Because when we turn on our primate brain, what happens is we actually shut off our mouse brain and our lizard brain, and we're able to think creatively and innovatively and strategically, and then seek out that positive satisfaction in a good way. So that's the solution to confidence. Now let's see how to actually do it in our 4-step framework. The thing to remember here is that connection is the key. It can be connection to people, it can be connection to things, but in this case, I'm going to suggest that it's connection to yourself. So let's move on and to look at the framework. So it's a 4-step framework. The first step of the 4-step framework is to connect to to your superpower. And I'm going to walk you through an exercise where it's going to require you to self-reflect and think about this. But when you can connect to your superpower and really connect to it, really identify it, really live with it, then you engage your primate brain, you engage your little monkey. I call it hug your monkey. So you connect to your superpower, you hug your monkey, and when you have that connection to yourself, then you shut down the scared mouse and the scared lizard. All right, so let's have a look at how you can identify your superpower and how you can connect to it. So here we are. So step one of connecting to your superpower or discovering your superpower is to recognize that you probably don't know what it is. And you probably don't even think it's particularly super or particularly special. It's so natural to you that you're completely oblivious of it. And that means it's very hard to identify. I'm going to take you through some questions in a minute to help you identify it. But that's the first step, to recognize that it's sometimes a very basic thing that you take for granted and you don't think of as particularly special. The other thing about your superpower is that it gives you energy. When you're working against your superpower, it actually depletes your energy. By the end of the day, you're tired and exhausted. Then you're not operating in your superpower. If something gives you energy, you could do it all day, you feel good when you do it, then you know that you're working in your superpower. So you can recognize it because you recognize it generates energy rather than depletes energy. And then the third point is that your manager can't do it. It's a superpower because it's in short supply. And even if your manager can do it, she hasn't got time to do it because she's busy doing other things, or she doesn't want to do it, or whatever. Maybe she shares the same superpower, or he shares the same superpower, but they're doing a different job and they can't use it. So your superpower gives you energy, and it is useful for your manager because your manager can't do it or doesn't do it. It actually helps your manager. It makes their lives better. When you can identify that kind of sweet spot, then you know you're in your superpower, and you know you can tap into your confidence, because once you connect to that, you always know you're adding value, and you can always shut down your little mouse and your little lizard. All right, so now I'm going to ask you some questions, and here are the questions here. You can press pause if this is something that you can do on this, and go through these questions in your own time. So think about what skill or talent is second nature for you. Now, a question I like to ask people to bring out this is, what's the first thing you do when you're planning a holiday? Some people, when they're planning a holiday, the first thing they do is they think about all the options. Well, we could go here, we could go with our friends over there, we might go here, or we might take the car. They think of all sorts of options. If that's the first thing to do, then you're likely to be what we call innovators. On the other hand, other people, the first thing they do is start planning. Okay, well, the holiday is going to have to happen outside school holidays, because then we've got less people. And so these are the dates. When it's these dates, then there's other things that need to be brought in. So I'm going to start planning. That planning is an incredible superpower. And I bet lots of you have that. It really helps your manager as well. Or other people might first start researching and gathering all the facts. You know, what's the weather going to be like? What countries is it going to be warm? I want a warm holiday. Or where is there still going to be snow this year? Or whatever it happens to be. Start gathering the facts first. So see what's the first thing you do when you're planning a holiday. Other people might find a quick solution. They might prefer to leave things to the last minute and then see what's available. Again, that's a solution finder, cutting corners, finding quick fixes. That's a superpower in itself. And other people might be more like, oh, I do the same thing every year. I don't need to think about that because I'm very stable. I'm very I stabilize things and I protect things. I protect what's working. That's also a superpower. So have a little think about what your superpower is, and then connect those to what are your manager's bad habits. So I have one PA, her manager is always late for meetings. He's consistently late for meetings. He finds it quite funny, but it's really quite annoying to everybody else. He doesn't realize that because they all tell the PA, but they don't tell him. But so she recognizes that he's always late. And so her superpower is to give him everything he needs and get him organized so he's on time. So it helps him. So your superpower has to be something that helps him or her. All right, so you identify your superpower. That's first step. So have some thought about that. And I do have a resource for you at the end if you want to go further than that. Once you've identified your superpower, then the next step is to be absolutely clear on what you want to achieve in the meeting or in the conversation. So you need to have really decided with clarity of purpose, what do you want to walk away with? I like to say, what do you want to hold in your hand by the end of that conversation? Is it a plan of action? Is it a yes/no answer? What exactly is it that you want in your hand by the end of the conversation? And when you've answered that question, ask yourself, what's important about that? So that you can go even deeper. And when you've answered that question, ask yourself again, and what's important about that? So you need to journal this, which is why you'll need more time. Once you've done that about 3 times, you'll really get very clear on the core root core purpose, what it is you want to achieve and why, when you have this conversation, either in a group or with your manager. So that's step 2 of the 4-step confidence cultivator. And step 3 is to now put yourself in your manager's shoes. And remember, you are not your manager. So the object of this exercise is try and think like your manager. I have one client and she's so worried about her manager. She feels so sorry for her manager because her manager is working so hard. She's got young kids. She's never at home. She travels all the time. And the PA feels so sorry for her and nervous for her. But that's the PA's point of view. The manager loves her job. So you put yourself in your manager's shoes, try and think like them. How will your superpower and the thing that you want to get out of the conversation, how will it help them? How will it make their life easier? Because when you're having the conversation, you want to get a win-win, a win for you, a win for your manager. You want to get the answer that you want. So you'll need to have a think about it. And then step 4 is, once you've identified what your superpower is, and that's the thing you're going to be able to offer, you've identified and you've got very clear what the purpose of your conversation or your intervention is, what you want to get out of it. You've identified the win-win, what you're going to give, that's your superpower, and then what you're going to get, the answer or the clarity that you want. So you've got those 3 parts of the equation. The 4th part of the equation is now to hand it to your manager on a silver platter. You've pre-digested it for him or her, so you make it really easy for them to answer. Now, I'm just going to stop sharing a little bit for this, because your manager is so full. Your manager is making decisions all the time, every day, making hundreds and hundreds of decisions. And that is exhausting for them. And so you want to make it as easy as you can for them to make an easy decision. So you want to frame it in the kind of thing where they can say yes or no. And if you can't frame the decision in that way, then at least present it to them. I'd like to do this. This is what I suggest. This is the reason it would be beneficial. So you've got the win-win. Is that all right with you? So you really hand it on a silver platter so they don't have to think, because they're so tired of thinking and so tired of making decisions. Make the decision for them and just hand it for them on a silver platter, so they just basically tick it off. That's so important. Okay, back to sharing. So we've got our 4-step framework. We've understood that the key to the framework successfully working is bonding to your superpower, because our cognitive brain, our little monkey, if it's connected and bonded to a purpose, a thing, a value, in this case, your superpower, then it's going to be able to turn off the negative mouse and the negative lizard. So having that ownership of your superpower is really important, and stepping into your superpower every morning when you brush your teeth or whatever it is, remind yourself of your superpower and really embody it and own it so that you can remind yourself of that. I do have exercises to do that, but we haven't got time here. It's really important part of the equation. All righty. And remember that what's important here is small baby steps. We're in our comfort zone most of the time, but the magic happens out here. But if you try and force yourself, we call it flooding in psychology. If you try and force yourself to speak up and give a big presentation or have a really difficult conversation with your boss, even when they're really busy, if you force yourself through, then it's going to be very painful for you. So my advice is to just take baby steps outside your comfort zone, just out here. Don't have to go all the way here. Just go on your way out here. When you get tired and exhausted, come back and rest in your comfort zone and then try again. Be kind to yourself. Recognize you're progressing and just take baby steps each time, and you will progress and move and cultivate your confidence. And so if some of this was resonating with you, there's a TEDx talk that I did recently called Stop Blushing and Speak Up to Unlock Your Potential. And you can find that TEDx talk. Even if you don't blush, the lessons behind it are very, very helpful for confidence and speaking up, regardless of whether you blush or not when you do that. So please take a look at that if you're interested. And if you want to go deeper into discovering your superpower, because it's quite a difficult thing to do for some people, then I have a little worksheet on that, which you can get by emailing me. I've got my address here. You can email me for that and I can send that for you. I'd be delighted to send that for you. So I hope this was helpful for you. We've looked at what creates confidence or lack of confidence. We've understood that connecting to your superpower and being absolutely clear in advance of what you want to get out of the conversation helps you tap into your higher cognitive functions and shut down your subconscious mind, which can hijack your higher cognitive functions and create lack of confidence. And we've given you a step-by-step framework of what you can do to get ready for that conversation that you're going to have, either with a team or with your manager. So I hope that was helpful for you, and all the best.